who should actually spend money on a 43-inch 4K signage display, who can safely walk away, and does the price make sense for a business that just needs a reliable screen for everyday information? If you're sitting on the fence because you've seen a dozen best-of lists and wonder whether you're buying a gimmick or a workhorse, this review is for you. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I'm going to walk through the real-world setup, daily usability, and hidden trade-offs so you can decide if the LG 43 UH7NE is the right fit. First off, let's talk about why a signage display is different from a regular TV or monitor. The biggest difference is that it's expected to stay on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, often in bright environments like retail aisles, corporate lobbies, or cafeteria walls. That means you need something that can handle continuous operation without overheating, that stays bright enough to be legible in daylight, and that can be managed remotely because you probably don't have time to climb a ladder every time you want to change a playlist. The LG 43 UH7NE advertises exactly those things: an IPS panel for consistent colors from any angle, 700 nits of typical brightness, and a 24/7 operation certification. If you're a small CAF owner who just wants a cheap screen to run a looping menu, you might be better off with a regular consumer TV that costs a fraction of the price. Those units aren't built for constant on time, and you'll quickly see image retention or a shortened lifespan. On the other hand, if you run a busy retail floor with multiple touchpoints, need a screen that can be seen from both sides of an aisle, and you want to push updates from a central server, the LG Signage model starts to make sense. The first thing I checked when I unpacked the unit was the bezel. It's a thin, almost invisible border, which is a subtle but important factor when you're mounting the display in a frame or on a wall where you don't want the edge to distract viewers. The thin bezel also makes it easier to create a seamless video wall if you ever want to tile a couple of these together. That's something you'll hear a lot in larger corporate installations, but even a single unit benefits because the visual focus stays on the content, not the frame. Brightness is a real deal-breaker for signage. In a sunlit lobby, a 300 nit screen looks washed out within seconds. The LG's 700 nit rating puts it comfortably above the threshold for most indoor daylight situations. In my own test, I placed the display on a wall that receives direct morning sun through a large glass window. Even with the blinds partially open, the picture stayed crisp and the text stayed readable. That's the sort of practical proof you need before you commit to a $200+ purchase. Color consistency is another area where the IPS panel shines. Because IPS panels keep color accuracy across wide viewing angles, you won't see a washed-out right side or a shifted hue when you stand at the edge of the room. I tried the same video from 3 different positions straight on, 30 degrees left, and 30 degrees right, and the image remained virtually identical. For a digital menu board that needs to showcase food photos in appetizing color, that consistency matters more than any spec sheet can convey. Now, let's talk about connectivity because you'll be feeding content into this thing every day. The unit offers HDMI, USB, and a serial port. The HDMI is the obvious choice for a media player or a PC, while the USB slot can be used for a simple plug-and-play thumb drive that cycles through images or videos. The serial port is a nod to older POS systems that still rely on RS-232 commands. In a real-world scenario, a retail chain with legacy inventory displays can keep using their existing hardware without a costly upgrade. The downside is that there's no built-in Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, so you'll need a separate network device if you want wireless content updates. That's a small extra cost, but it's worth noting because many newer signage panels now include Wi-Fi out of the box. One practical strength that often gets overlooked is the environmental certification. LG has reduced the carbon footprint of this model, which means the manufacturing process used fewer resources and the unit consumes less power during operation. Over a year of 24/7 use, that power saving can translate into a noticeable reduction on your electricity bill, especially if you're running multiple screens. It's not a headline feature, but for any business that tracks operating expenses, it's a quiet win. Of course, no product is perfect. The most common criticism of larger signage panels is their weight, and at roughly 30 kilograms this model is not something you'll want to lift by yourself. You'll need a wall mount bracket and possibly a second pair of hands for installation. Also, while the 8 milliseconds response time is fine for static images and video loops, it isn't ideal for fast-moving sports graphics or high-speed